I was about 13 years old. I was in middle school at the time. I believe I was in 7th grade. I remember waking up in the morning and it was just like any other morning, and my mom had came and she woke me up and she said, "You need to wake up right now. You need to come and see what's on TV."
It appears that there is more and more fire and smoke enveloping the very top of the building, and as fire crews are descending on this area, it does not appear that there's any kind of an effort up there yet. Now remember, oh my God.
Oh my God.
That looks like a second plane.
I did not see a plane go in. That just exploded.
We just saw another plane coming in from the side.
You did. That was out of
Yes, and that's the second explosion. You could see the plane come in just from the right-hand side of the screen. So this looks like it is some sort of a concerted effort to attack the World Trade Center.
I was at home. I was getting ready to come to work. I always watch the news in the morning or listen to the news, and I was listening to it, and I heard that a plane had flown into the Twin Towers. I then went and turned on the news, and I was watching the news, and I was actually watching it when the second plane flew into it. And at that point, I still don't know if they knew it was a terrorist attack, but it wasn't long after that where they started theorizing that it was a terrorist attack.
At that time I was working as a Phoenix police officer, and I was working in employment services. And I had just gotten to the station, which was at 620 West Washington, and I just put my stuff down at the desk, and we were kind of chatting and everything, and someone made an announcement over our radio stuff, our radio equipment, saying that a small plane had hit the World Trade Center.
So I went and I just saw some buildings on fire, and I didn't really understand what was happening at the time. And as I watched more, I got to see the second plane actually hit the building, hit the tower, and at that moment I was still shocked at what was going on. I couldn't really comprehend it, but my parents had told me, we're most likely going to war now, and I remember that just rocking my world.
I was at home with my baby, and there was a really loud explosion. Keep in mind, because I was so close to the Pentagon, I could actually hear the explosion at the Pentagon. And I had ashes falling on my backyard for like 72 hours straight afterwards.
We were about 1.5 miles from the towers. We were up toward Canal Street, and we had been staying in Times Square. So we were just kind of walking toward a convention that my husband was involved in, toward Canal Street.
We went on basically high alert as law enforcement, and because I was in a detective's point of view or position, what we did is actually we had to start circulating and protecting all of the different high public entities, if you will. We had to go and check and make sure all the water facilities were not being compromised. We had to check the Shamrock Foods because of the milk products coming in and being dispersed. We had to check all those to make sure that they were all on board as far as infrastructure, and making sure that there wasn't anybody trying to poison the food intake or our water intake or any of those other services and electric services.
I remember at that time just sitting back, and I actually had to go to school that day, and I wanted to go home. Just thinking about what could happen with our country, just thinking about what could happen in the world around us. I got to a point where I said, you know what, even as a young kid, I said, hey, this is about my family. Tomorrow isn't promised. Something like that could happen in our world today at any moment where I live.
Well, I was in New York about 2 years ago, and I went and visited the site. And at that time, it was just a huge hole, and it was quite a sight to envision that entire building had been taken down and what had happened there. I think that it impacted my life by making me a little more scared, a little more worried about what could really happen. I thought that we were very protected here, and it just made me realize how vulnerable everybody is.
I think it's impacted all of us. I teach Spanish here at Paradise Valley High School, and I'm a big traveler, so in the little ways it's impacted, but in the bigger ways, I think it's made us more globally aware of how protected we can feel, and how important it is to really look after one another. I was in New York City earlier this year, and there was still the big hole where the Twin Towers went down, and it was a really weird feeling. It was bizarre in the heart of a really busy city to find a huge hole and silence. It was really, really quiet, which is not really what you would associate with New York City. My husband was just there 2 weeks ago, and he took pictures of the memorial that's gone in there now. And it's really beautiful, but again, it's a really silent memorial because it's a fountain, and it starts with a big fountain of water that pours into a smaller fountain, into a smaller fountain, into a smaller fountain. And it's just an eerie feeling, and I don't think that eerie feeling will ever go away for Americans.
Being there and watching the dust, watching total chaos, everything shut down in New York. What's interesting, I was supposed to come back here to PV on Tuesday. The day it came down, I had a flight out of JFK at 10 o'clock, and if you remember, I think they came down about 8 o'clock. So my flight was obviously canceled, and everything else in New York. So it was kind of interesting. I didn't actually get back to campus until that Friday. We had to drive out through Philadelphia to get home. So really different. Although I didn't lose anyone personally, many of the people that my husband was involved with in his business in New York lost family members in the tower, so it was pretty terrifying.
These acts of mass murder were intended to frighten our nation into chaos and retreat. But they have failed. Our country is strong. A great people has been moved to defend a great nation. Terrorist attacks can shake the foundations of our biggest buildings, but they cannot touch the foundation of America.